True love really is possible. If you give 5 compliments a day for the next year, you think that's not going to change your relationship? They said you may never walk again. I mean, of course it was devastating. They had to cut the back of my leg, and they had to remove this huge cyst.
How do you approach the situation as your partner is processing this huge, difficult news that's come up?
You're going to choose to be a victim, or you're going to be a victor. You might get to the top of the mountain, but guess what? There's always another higher mountain. The thing is if we're not growing, we're dying. I'm grateful, always grateful for the small things. What if my wife cheats on me? How is that not a mistake? Talk about it now.
How did you realize that spirituality is a very key ingredient?
My heart started to really hurt. And I was like, am I having a panic attack? Please don't wait 20 years for your dream to come true.
Anger itself is not bad. But the difference is whether anger controls you or you control anger.
I might cry when I say this, but it's so profound that I really love myself.
Today, we have an incredible inspiration on our podcast. She survived childhood trauma, lifelong anger, and transformed pain into purpose. From nearly failing to get into music school to overcoming 3 knee surgeries, her resilience is unmatched. Honestly, she's an inspiration to me. She lost 125 pounds, found strength in Buddhism, and healed through spiritual practice. Today, she lives her purpose as a health coach, intuitive healer, and a podcast host. Please welcome Janet Prado.
Hello, everyone. Hello, beautiful souls. How are you? How are you, AJ?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
Doing fabulous. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for giving us the time here. So I'm going to start with something that's a very, very basic question. And for me, when I first learned about this was quite late into my journey. So what does the word chronic mean, in case people aren't aware?
Absolutely. So chronic is when, for example, let's say since childhood, you've been dealing with headaches, right? I have a very good friend. She's been dealing with migraines ever since she was a baby. I mean, she would cry. Her parents didn't know what was happening. Doctor after doctor after doctor after doctor, right? Chronic doesn't necessarily mean that you're, and someone that's elderly that's dealing with, let's say, arthritis, because in today's age, 1 in every 9 people all over the world are dealing with some sort of liver issue. A lot of times we don't think about the liver. We're told to mask it with medication. And there is times for medication, right? Don't get me wrong. The Western and the Eastern come together, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the chronic it's when you're dealing with a symptom that keeps coming up, right? So.
Right.
And I just want to expand briefly, because in today's age, because so many people are sick all over the world, chronic could start with something like, let's say you're only just getting headaches. I'm just giving an example. Maybe you're feeling slight fatigue, right? Because that eventually, if we don't address the root issues, that can, possibly turn into something chronic later on. So, yeah. So I hope does that answer your question?
I think that answers my question, because this was the understanding I came up with, and maybe you can tell me if my understanding is right. What I understood is the nature of pain usually is it comes, and then the idea is it goes away at some point. If you've tried different things and the pain is just staying and it's there over an extended period, and it may ebb and flow, but still there's that hint of pain constantly there. And it can be pain, fatigue, whatever you want to use after the chronic. That's what it means. There's a more lasting impact of that symptom.
I mean, chronic can also, yes, it can stop and then it can come back, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that, I help, people with is just that, to address what the root cause is. Because the thing is, you can mask it with, let's say you're like, oh, okay, I have this acne, but then I did this and now it's gone. But I guarantee you, I'm just going to give it to you straight. It's probably still there in your liver because you're not dealing with the root issue, So.
Fascinating. So when you got to know about the knee issue that you had, what did you go through and how did you process?
That's such a deep question. I love it. So in 2000, I'm going to make the short story very brief. Okay, in 2000, I fell down some stairs. I used to be a cross-country varsity runner. I used to be a runner, right? So you can imagine that was very, very drastic for me, because basically after that, at that point, I was not performing at a professional level athletically, right? during track. I was actually in college at this time. I fell down some stairs. Doctors didn't know what was wrong. The years kind of went by, but every year my knee, that chronic condition, right, started to get worse. I knew something was off with my knee. In 2008, I find out that I have this rare condition called PVNS. 1 in a million people get this condition, so I got lucky. I was like, okay, well, I have a mission to overcome this. 2011, 2014, 2018, I had 3 surgeries, right? This condition, it just would not go away. It just wouldn't, The doctor said the only way to get rid of it was through surgery. I said, thank you, I appreciate your professional opinion. They said you may never walk again. I mean, of course it was devastating, because 2011, I thought, that's it, I'm never having a surgery again. In 2014, they tell me, because the first surgery that they did was very invasive. They had to cut kind of like this, the back of my leg, and they had to remove this huge cyst that I had. I mean, it was very painful, but it served its purpose, right? And then 2014, my doctor's like, you have another stuff going on in the front of the knee, the condition, right? And so basically, and they told me, 2015, guess what they told me after going through all that pain and suffering? Guess what? The cyst is back.
Oh my God.
I was devastated. I was just like, you have to be kidding me. And of course, 2014, I was like, I have to have another surgery. And a lot of pain, a lot of tears, I mean, 2015, they had to take this huge needle and they had to stick it in the back of my leg so they could suck out some of the liquid, right? Because I didn't want to go through another surgery in the back of my leg. No way. I didn't want to go through that. So that was like a temporary fix, right? Between 2014 and 2015, I have to say probably was one of the most devastating years as far as health, because the way we sit as human beings like this, we sit normal, right? It was very hard for me to sit like this. I could only sit down for maybe 5, maybe 15 minutes, but I always had to have my legs elevated. Because the thing is when you're dealing with inflammation in the body, whether you have your arm inflamed, let's say your stomach, right? A lot of people deal with bloating, right? It's very, very, very uncomfortable, right? So the knee, if you're dealing with inflammation in the knee and you're trying to sit down, I mean, it could be uncomfortable for anybody, right? So to answer your question, yeah, I mean, it was just a lot of soul searching. I mean, really trying to find myself. May I share something else with you, kind of personal?
Of course.
Back in 2006, I actually, because we're talking about spirituality, right? I went to see a shaman, and she actually did a past life. And she told me in 13th century BC that I was a man and that I was very sick. I was 18 years old and I contracted another incurable disease. And back in those days, I mean, I'm not saying there weren't doctors, but it was a lot of holistic stuff. People took care of themselves because doctors were expensive, But she told me, guess what part of my body I was sick?
Legs?
My
or the liver?
legs. My legs. I couldn't walk. She saw me at 18 getting this condition, right? And then she fast forwarded and I was a 56-year-old man and I was still sick. She said, you used to provide for your family at a young age, but then you got so sick you were just basically, like a vegetable for the rest of your life, right? And so she said, you came into this lifetime to finally eradicate this condition. 2020, I knew that my body had healed. I found the root cause of the symptom, which was viral, basically. Started doing foods, started understanding, and now here, lifted brain fog, chronic fatigue, here we are now 5 years later. I mean, look, I'm sitting here fine. I was at a VIP mastermind dinner yesterday. I was sitting for almost 2 hours. I hadn't been able to do that for years, but it was such a gift. Kind of a long answer, but I just really wanted to share from my heart. It's been a journey. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be very open with you. I still have days. I have days because I'm human, right? I still get, even though I'm a holistic health coach, there's what was it, 2 weeks ago, I got really sick. What? Even though I take such good care of myself, but the thing is we're human, right? We're all going to get sick, even if it's a cold. But the thing was, thank goodness, I'm grateful, always grateful for the small things. We have to be grateful for the small things, right? I have the tools, right? I'm doing the celery juice. I'm doing my water with lemon. I'm cleansing out the liver. It took about a good week and even a second week, but here I am. I'm fine. I'm not dealing with the strep. So.
Awesome. That's awesome. And I wanted to focus on something that you said, which is very rare, how people will term this. You said you were lucky to get this and face that. And it shows the mindset that you had to build as you were processing this entire thing. I think that one word can shift you from feeling helpless to being on a mission. And I think that's profound.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, because the thing is it's easy to live as a victim. Either you're going to choose to be a victim or you're going to be a victor. I lived my life for many years, AJ. I lived my life for many years as a victim. It's okay. I just didn't know I was like this, right? But now, like horses, like if you think of horses, like the professional horses, you know why they have blinders? So they don't get distracted, right? So are you like that horse, or are you going to open up your blinders, right? But that's a decision. That is a decision. You either decide to be a victim or you're going to be a victor. But I'm sure you that are watching this or listening to this right now, you are a victor. You're seeking for something much better, to be open, right? And the thing is we're not always going to have the answers. That's part of the journey. That's just life. Like if you try to go up a mountain, okay, we reach the top of the mountain, but in between the mountain, you're going to have cactuses. You're going to have trees. You're going to have lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, right, from the Wizard of Oz, right? You're going to have so many obstacles because you know what? If the mountain was smooth, like a slide, you would slide right back down. Like the mountain has to have its different peaks, its valleys. But guess what? You might get to the top of the mountain, but guess what? There's always another higher mountain. Like the thing is if we're not growing, we're dying. The only people that are resting are the people that are dead in the cemetery.
Yeah.
So we have to always be challenging ourselves. Life is not going to be always unicorns, fairies, and DuckTales. Like life is freaking hard. Like being a human being on planet Earth, like it is freaking hard. But life is also beautiful. But the thing is, it's you have to decide what you're going to do with your life. Whatever you have a unique mission. The very fact that you're alive means that you're a miracle. So many people, they give up on themselves. They want to live an easy life. Let me tell you, there's no safety. There's a lot of chaos and things going on in this world. I don't need to tell you, I live here in Los Angeles. Not that far away, they're having all these crazy, riots and stuff. I know that's not what we're talking about, but I'm saying that, I'm just saying, one of the things, because I was starting to get affected by it, watching social media. Again, I'm human, right? And then, okay, I had my day of, being scared, and I got out of it. I was like, okay, what are you doing to take care of yourself? It's not selfish. It doesn't mean that you don't care about what's going on in the world, right? There's always going to be something going on, but I have to take care of myself. And so that's why I was like, I went to a dinner last night. I'm going into the studio this Saturday to record my single because I'm an artist too. But I'm like, I'm not going to stop my life because this stuff is going on. Of course I care. I care about my family and all these things. So that's my message that I wanted to share for anyone watching or listening. Like, you got to take care of you, because if you don't fill your cup, you cannot fill somebody else's cup. You have to take care of yourself, whatever that looks like, whether it's to be the best mom, the best dad. We're talking here about relationships, so we're going to get into in a minute, taking care of yourself, your whether your wife, husband, right? You got to take care of each other, right? But most of all, you got to take care of yourself. So I'm just fired up today.
I mean, I'm glad. That's the perfect energy. So if you have a partner who has just, gotten this news and they're processing this, and you have not gone through something like that, right? Let's take a situation where you're a partner or a spouse who has not faced anything like this. How do you approach the situation as your partner is processing this huge, difficult news that's come up? Because in the initial moments, your humanness is going to come up. You're going to try and face, you're going to have so many thoughts, fears, different things come up. How do you approach it as a partner?
Yeah, that's a really great question. The thing is we think sometimes that we have to be this perfect human being. Like, we're like, oh, I didn't go through that much. I didn't suffer as much as my partner. Let me tell you right now, it doesn't matter. I think the biggest thing that like is there's like a 50% divorce rate here in the United States. I think one of the biggest issues that people, to answer your question, I think the biggest gift that you can give your partner is just to listen. It's not about giving a solution. Just sit down, look into each other's eyes, and just listen to each other. Just listen to your husband, listen to your wife. Communication is one of the biggest things, you know. Advice that I got from one of my coaches, if it's okay to share, it's so beautiful. I really think everybody listening to this is going to get so much value. One of the most beautiful things that you can do every day when you guys both get up, or even if somebody's traveling, that's why we have technology, is this. You're gonna give 3 compliments, or even if you want to start with one. I want you to say something that you are grateful for to your husband. I don't care how grumpy you are, even if you're mad for something that happened the day before, even if you say, you know what, honey, I'm so grateful that you're alive, right? I'm grateful for those beautiful eyebrows you got, for your lashes, it can be the smallest thing, right? So having gratitude, appreciation, for your significant other. And also, there's a book called The 5 Love Languages. If you've never read this book, you have to read it. Because when you start to understand what the love language of your partner is, wow, like magic can happen, right? Okay? Like, I cannot tell you how many people that I've coached, just through health stuff, but couples, right? Like, one of my really good friends, she's married, and she asked me advice, like, what about this, and so, but yeah, I was telling her about the 5 languages. She's like, I gotta get that book. I was like, yeah, you gotta get the book. I was like, does he love compliments? Does he like to receive gifts? You just got to read the book. So
there is so much nuance in the book. Actually, first time my wife and myself heard about this, we were like, okay, there are 5 different things. But here's the really interesting part. In different contexts, people have different love languages. So you take them into a stressful situation, they're going to need something else. You take them into a fun situation, they need something else. And it varies, and it can vary through seasons. The order changes. There's so much nuance. And I think the point probably that I'm trying to make is you often need to keep studying your partner. You often need to keep learning new things about them or what's changed. Circling back to what you said, I think presence, one of the most powerful tools you can have. If you can just sit with this partner who is probably going through immense pain, immense amount of fears, and this can apply to any stage of their life. The value of that presence, even if they don't communicate it to you, would be enormous. Because just imagine if you took out yourself from that picture and they have to face it alone without someone just even holding them, how much more difficult that situation is going to be. And I hope this lands on everyone who's listening. The best thing sometimes you can do is just be there. Just be there. Nothing else. I know you've worked with a lot of couples, right? And they handle it in different ways and they try to do different things to manage the situation. What are the mistakes they do as they're trying to help their partner? Or as they're handling it themselves. Either case. By the way, if you want the tools that will help you recover from conflicts due to communication issues in your marriage, I've created a free guide to help you with exactly that. You can grab it using the link below.
Great question. When I'm coaching couples, I try to look at it as like, not as mistakes, but as lessons, right? I'm not saying we don't make mistakes, but it's our words, right? Words, right? Like, what's the lesson here, right? Well, what is it that we need to do to grow? I would say the biggest thing is like, what can come up a lot is like, oh, let's talk about it later. No, talk about it now. Because the thing is like, if you leave something for later, that's okay, it's gonna pile up. It's gonna pile, right? And you're gonna have, instead of all like a beautiful fruit basket of like really fresh fruit, like some oranges, some apples and some bananas, like it's gonna all accumulate and then it's gonna get all rotten. I like to use analogies, right? So you got to continue filling that beautiful basket of the lessons, right, with beautiful fruit, right? The gems, right? The diamonds, the lapis lazuli, right? But yeah, again, it just goes back to that, talking through it. Because the thing is like, there's so much confrontation, things that can happen, right? And like, oh, I want a divorce, right? Like, I know it's a lot different in other countries, I've traveled to many different, I've been as far as India. That was my favorite. I love how every culture's different. There's no judgment here. I know there's like the arranged marriage, and there are people that get to choose who they want to marry, but it's all beautiful though. It's like they're very committed in their marriages, and I really respected that. But anyways, going back to your question, I just think that, I don't know, can I say something? I don't know why I'm very intuitive, and I feel like that there's a question that somebody's thinking of right now. There's like, well, what if my husband cheats on me? What if my wife cheats on me? Like, how is that not a mistake? Okay, there's different, I'm not saying cheating is acceptable. No, not at all. And of course, if you want to divorce your husband or your wife, if they do that, like, I don't know if I could stay with someone if they did that to me, because that is extremely painful, every situation's different, right? I'm not God. I'm Janet Prado here. Happiness from within, right? That's like a much bigger, the only thing I can say in regards to that question is every couple's different, because I've heard of amazing stories of people that have actually forgiven their significant other to give them another chance, right? But everybody's different, right? So yeah, as far as mistakes, I think that they're learning lessons. What can we learn from this? Because the thing is you're going to get into arguments. There's things that are going to come up, confrontations. There's going to be things that, I don't like the way that you said this to me, right? But again, it's about communicating. Because if you don't communicate, how are they going to know, right? Like if they're saying something to you and it makes you feel really uncomfortable, and let's say you just ignore the situation and you just assume, because a lot of times we assume in our head, maybe they're just going to figure it out. But the thing is when you communicate it, oh, I didn't recognize that you were feeling this way, right? I don't know if you've ever heard of Tony Robbins.
I'm a huge fan.
He has such great advice too when he's talking about, he has such a beautiful marriage with the way he talks about his wife. Like, it's so beautiful, yeah, I definitely recommend listening to him too, because he's one of my favorite people listening to advice about couples and stuff. My second, I would say, is Robin Sharma. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's kind of like a Tony Robbins, but more of the spiritual. And he has a book he wrote, The Family Wisdom, right? And it's just so amazing. He talks about like how to have those values, right? I'm kind of giving you a long answer, but I think having values as a couple too is very important. Like, what are your core values? Like, maybe one of your core values is, to respect and love each other no matter what happens, right? Maybe your core values is to give that one compliment a day. Because if you give 5 compliments a day for the next year, that's like, I forgot what the math was on that. Well, you just take
Something around 3,000,
Thank you.
1,600, something.
We got a
like
math
that.
quiz here. I love it. No, but that's over 3,000 compliments. You think that's not going to change a relationship? Hello? Yeah, right? So think of what everybody has different core values. So that's kind of a long answer, but does it answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Any
Okay.
stories that come to your mind where you were like, that's an example of a lesson that's worth remembering?
Yeah, sure. So for example, I had this actually couple that I was working with, right? And one of them, she worked full time, living her mission, working 9 to 5, right? And then the husband was a professional artist, right? Singing, and the thing was is she didn't really see this at the beginning of the marriage, right? And basically she was the one being the sole provider, right? And we live in different times now, right? Usually most of the time it's the male counterpart that has been the provider for thousands of years, right? Again, every marriage is different. I'm not telling you what to do here, so if I don't get offended, right? So the thing was is she was always trying to tell him, like, you need to, it wasn't about like, oh, you need to get a real job, but start taking more responsibility, right? And then they ended up having a son together, right? So one of the lessons here, I mean, again, you could call it a mistake, was that she was the one bringing the money, and then he wasn't the one really providing too much. Started getting kind of like lazy, right? And so it didn't. So the example of what had happened is like, well, you guys need to really talk about this, right? It unfortunately did end up turning into, they did everything they could, turning into a divorce. But the thing was that they were together for so long. But the lesson is that she came to realize she can't change him. Like, you can't change people. You can't. Sometimes really people do fall apart, and it happens, you know? I know that was kind of a weird example, but
I
you know,
think just to build on that example, something that comes to my mind is sometimes everybody is providing in different ways, and I always communicate this. Providing isn't just about going out and earning and bringing something back. Providing is doing the house chores. Providing is giving the emotional support. Providing is coming up with fun ideas for the relationship. Providing is each of these facets. It's not limited to one thing. And I think getting out of that, just like, is that just providing, can change your perspective. If that's something you're open to, I think that would be another way to do, another lesson that I would take away from that.
No, I think that's great. That's great. No, that's beautiful. Because every couple has their beautiful connection together, and it's every couple shares their own beautiful, traits. And I've seen so many people that really, really do. True love really is possible. Like, if that's the biggest thing you get out of this show, like, love really truly is possible. It really comes down to, and I mentioned this earlier, even if you are married, you still need to continue to work on yourself. However that looks like reading books, listening to, this awesome podcast, listening to people like Tony Robbins. Like, you've got to continue working on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, I don't know what that looks like for you. Like, again, everybody has a different mission, right? Whatever your profession is, it doesn't define who you are, right? Like I said, if you want to be the best mom, I think that's freaking awesome. Well, guess what? You can still work on communication skills, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what your age is. It's never too late.
Yeah. Absolutely. Completely agree. Getting back into the health aspect, how, if I'm in a relationship with a partner, how do I notice that, there's something wrong in the health aspect? Sometimes symptoms are much earlier than the pains that we start to feel. Are there signs you can look for to notice, okay, there's something that needs attention here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I love this. Now we're talking about health stuff. So, yeah, absolutely. Like, one of the biggest things that I've helped couples with, women with, is that is brain fog, right? It's not just headaches, but what brain fog is like you start to kind of forget things. Things feel kind of off, right? Or maybe you start to get a certain pain somewhere. But yeah, like, one of the biggest ones is the pain too. Like, maybe you start to have pain in your joints, right? And then of course, you go see your doctor. It's very important to go see your doctor, right? But yeah, I would say that's one of the biggest ones, and the thing is like, what happens is a lot of people come to me when they've already seen many doctors, right? And they're just at a wit's end, right? And so the protocols that I've learned my information from is from Anthony Welling. So I want to make sure to be giving him credit, right? Because he's helped millions of people all over the world to heal from chronic illness, right? But yeah, to answer your question, it's brain fog is definitely one of the biggest ones, and fatigue, chronic fatigue. You start to feel really tired. You don't know what the heck is going on. Like, I used to be, like, before, I got really sick. I used to be, even though I was dealing with the knee stuff, right? But I could still walk, right? But I was always pretty busy, right? But when I got really sick with the brain fog, and actually had, at the time, I'd lost my job. I was like, you keep making all these mistakes. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I was always a professional, right? I was just like very on top of my stuff, right? But that was a gift. I was lucky. I was like, okay, I wasn't happy there anyway. So see ya, right? So I was actually grateful that I got the brain fog, right? And then that's when the healing started. I found Anthony Welling's medical meeting protocols, and it was devastating though, AJ. It was so devastating because somebody to tell me that basically I was stupid, because I knew I wasn't stupid, right? But when you're making that many mistakes, I was like, something is not right here at such a young age, right? So young, right? I'm still young, right? And so when you think of like dementia, that it's in that sort of thing, it's brain fog. I want to be very clear. It's not a form of dementia. Okay, so the root cause is actually of Alzheimer's dementia is actually toxic heavy metals in the brain. Brain fog is actually due to viral conditions. You may or may not be dealing with heavy metals, right? But there may or may not be, right? You have to do a full analysis to really know.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about viral, I'm talking about EBV, which is Epstein-Barr. Okay. There's different stages of Epstein-Barr. There's stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. When you're dealing with brain fog, that's most likely stage 4. Again, not to bring fear, you can heal the body, right? It's about basically taking away foods that are feeding the virus. Okay. So someone might ask, okay, well, I'm dealing with these conditions. I want to give 3 things that you can do today.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So this might trigger some people, and again, I'm just the messenger, so you have to eliminate dairy. Dairy, eggs, and gluten. Those are the top 3 that feed the viruses. Now, if you're not dealing with chronic illness and you want to keep eating that, go for it. Okay, I used to eat eggs. I love eggs. I actually miss eggs. I just don't eat them anymore because I've dealt with so many chronic illness symptoms, and I just can't go back to eating those things. Can I just share one more thing? Now, a lot of people ask, well, why the eggs? There's a story behind this. There is.
I would love to.
You may not believe me, but this is the honest truth. Because like I said, life is beautiful, but there's also darkness and things that happen. Because there's people that want to control certain things. Eggs, before this had happened, right? This happened, I think, like 100 years ago, or maybe a little bit, not that long ago. So in a lab, they created this virus, right? That basically, and guess what they used to feed the virus? The eggs. Like let me give you an example. This is going to blow you away, but this is going to open those blinders. If you watch any American movie, I'm talking about American movies, what is the thing that they're always eating? They're always eating freaking eggs. Like if they're cooking breakfast, what do you see? The eggs. Have your eggs. And the thing that's so sad is in today's age, like if you're dealing with brain fog, guess what the doctor tells you to eat? Eggs. Freaking kidding me? Like, no. If someone's dealing with chronic pain, what do you have? Have the eggs. And it's okay. It's not their fault. They don't know. They go to school. They do the best that they can, right? But when Anthony Williams brought this to light, it started to open up people's eyes. And there's still a lot of people that don't know about this. Because he's helped millions of people, guess what? They're trying to shut him up, right? But the thing is I've healed my body with his protocols, and I continue to do so. And that's why when people ask me about it, that's why I'm so passionate to helping, people to heal from this chronic illness. Because the thing is chronic illness is on the rise. It's things that they put in our food, in the air. It's so many different things. But yeah, it's kind of I know I keep sounding like a broken record, but I'm giving long answers. No, but you know what? I'm passionate.
Go ahead. This
is that's
your space.
As far as dealing with symptoms, it's hard. So many people are suffering out there. There's many people that they don't realize this, but there's people that are so sick that they are bed bound. They cannot get out of bed. If they get out of bed, maybe just to barely go to the bathroom, because they're having so many neurological issues. The fatigue is one of the biggest. Brain fog, chronic pain, Hashimoto's, right? IBS, right? It's because that stage 4 of Epstein-Barr is so huge that it's infiltrated their body that it's hard to function. I'm very lucky I didn't get to that point, but let me tell you something. I know if I didn't find the medical meeting protocols, I know to this day I would be bedbound right now. I would not be here with all this energy, But everything has its purpose, right? I've been able to, not only me, but millions of people, to heal their body. Because that's the thing, you can heal your body. You can. I went to see my doctor a few years ago. Like I said, don't stop seeing your doctor. Go see your doctor, see what works for you, right? But he told me I didn't have that condition anymore. Like, I still did the right things. Like, I did the food. I already knew I was in the right path. But I went to see my doctor, and he says, you don't have that condition. Wow, after 20 years. You could imagine, right? You have this condition for so long, you're struggling, and then someone tells you that it's healed. What? But no, the body can heal. You know, the root cause of cancer, okay, is Epstein-Barr. It's Epstein-Barr. But this is the thing that's beautiful, is you can heal your body through what higher source already gave us, food. You know, it's just about putting in the right foods. Celery juice is one of the biggest things that I would recommend to start with.
Yeah,
check out Anthony Williams. You can get a lot of his information for free. Why
is dairy so dangerous?
Okay, so it's not that the dairy is bad. If you're dealing with chronic illness, right? It thickens the blood. Okay, and if you have this Epstein-Barr, right? Basically, like, imagine, so the lifespan of the Epstein-Barr, because it's like these little thingies, right, in the bloodstream, it's basically, that's giving it fuel, right? So, like, if you don't put gas in your car, it's not going to run anymore. You're not going to be able to drive it, right? So that's the gasoline for the EBV. One of them is the dairy. And the thing is dairy is interesting because I know this is going to trigger people, but I'm just going to say it, okay? If you think about, like, milk, right? Like, if you were a baby and you were breastfed, that's like the best nutrition that you can give to your baby. Oh, actually, this is good because we're talking about couples, right? Like, any moms. So breast milk is glucose. So what actually feeds, the thing that we need to be feeding our bodies is actually glucose. So it's not normal to actually be drinking cow's milk. I'm sorry, it's just not. It's not. The thing is there's many people that are lactose intolerant. Okay? Like, if you get up in the morning and you have, like, let's say runny nose, that's not normal. That's the root cause of that is strep. The biggest thing that feeds strep is dairy. Now, if you want to keep having runny nose and you want to keep feeding the strep, then keep having the dairy. No problem. You don't have to listen to me. But I'm telling you, if you start to get really, really sick, you're going to do anything in your power to want to heal, you know? So if you ever get really sick with chronic illness, you got to check out Anthony Williams. You know, the information will always be there. Again, a lot of people get triggered with this. Don't get rid of my eggs. Don't get rid of my milk. What are you talking about? You know, I want my eggs. Okay, have your eggs. I'm not there with a little notepad saying, oh, you had eggs today. It's your choice. It's your life, right? But again, I'm very passionate to helping those that are dealing with health issues. And if you want to prevent, then just take out the eggs. There actually are other alternatives, you know, like you could, well, I don't eat soy, so I can't say tofu, because actually soy, that's another one that's a big no-no when you're dealing with chronic illness. So, but you know, there are other types of milk. You can have oat milk. You can have almond milk. And I have to answer this question. Someone says, well, what if I'm on a farm? I drink goat's milk. Okay, fine, then have your goat's milk. If that's the only thing you have access to, I'm not there with a notepad. You had goat milk. No. Maybe you're in a part of the world that's what you consume every day. Then you have that, you know. I do believe, I have to say this, I definitely believe that there's parts of the world that I don't think the Epstein-Barr is as heavy, because people really do eat very good. They eat very good, you know. But I'm telling you, this epidemic, the epidemic of chronic illness is huge right now. It's huge because so many people are getting sick. I'm telling you, just mark my words. As you see the years go by, more and more people are going to be like, it's what we call mystery symptoms. What is that? Why do I have that? What are the top 3 things that people pass away from? Heart disease, right? Stroke, and cancer. I don't want to say it on the podcast, but those are the 3. And when we consume things like dairy, the eggs, guess what? you have to think about the thickness of your blood. What? My blood? My blood is fine. Okay, I'm sure your blood is fine. So when you're on a high protein, high fat diet, right, like meats, again, this is over time. And I tell you this from personal experience because I used to eat like a lot of chicken and all these things. There's like these, I don't want to scare people, but there's like, they were talking about bird flu. There's thousands of birds dying in the sky right now. Again, there's propaganda and agenda behind that. But all I can tell you is that when you have a thick blood, okay, your liver is the filtration system of the body, okay, and what happens is over time your liver can get so clogged, okay, and then you start gaining weight, right? You start having these symptoms, you start getting autoimmune symptoms, you start getting the headaches, the fatigue, right? And if that's the case, 100% of the time, you're probably dealing with an EBV issue. You could be dealing with HHPV, right? There's over 100 strains. So it's not just one type of EBV. There's like over 100 strains. There's over 60 strains of strep, right? There's so many different factors that go behind it. I know I've been giving a lot of information, but can I recommend a book? Not my book. There's a book called Cleanse to Heal. When I do write a book, I'll let you know. But no. Cleanse to Heal by Anthony Williams. You can literally look up any condition and it will, like let's say you have strep. You go to the back of the book, you look up strep, it'll start to give you what's called protocols of things that you can do to start healing that. It'll have like celery juice, water with lemon. It'll tell you supplements that you can take. But yeah, it's just amazing. So
Awesome. That's really incredible. Are there tests that someone can do to recognize early signs of these?
yeah, so unfortunately, we are getting ahead with medical science, but it's going to probably take thousands of years before they even, because they're not going to do studies that, oh, like for example, celery juice is good for you, right? The thing is like when you are tested in the doctor's office, right? Again, they're doing their job, right? With like, let's say Hashimoto's, or, you're dealing with IBS. The thing is that like, these are band-aids. I'm not saying you don't have those conditions. Obviously what your doctor says is what your doctor says. But the thing is like, they're starting to put so many labels on things. And they bring fear to people. And then they think they can never heal, right? You can't get tested at a certain level. They do have tests now where the doctor will show that you do have like, maybe you have, I don't know, they don't have, I think they're just starting to have tests for Epstein-Barr. The thing is you really start to see when you have symptoms. Yeah, unfortunately,
Okay.
That's a good question. But again, science is getting better, so but yeah, I think there are some tests that do show like, oh, you have some, Epstein-Barr,
Yeah. I know spirituality played a huge role in how you recovered and transitioned out of this entire thing. How did you realize that spirituality is a very key ingredient? Was there a moment? Was there something that you saw? How did you know that, yes, this is the key to the puzzle?
Yeah, absolutely. In regards to spirituality, whatever you believe in out there, like, it all comes down to your mindset, right? Because the thing is like, one of the things that happens, when you are, let's just give you the example of chronic illness, right? It's like if you are under stress, right, that pumps out adrenaline, right? And that actually also is a trigger to Epstein-Barr, unfortunately, right? So and I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying don't cry. Of course you're going to cry. God, I can't tell you how many times I've cried. I still cry sometimes, But what are you saying to yourself on a daily basis? Are you saying to yourself that you're beautiful? You're worthy. I am a beautiful beacon of light. I stand in my power. I'm a sparkly coast of happiness from within. I dare to dream the things that I want to dream, right? I am manifesting beautiful things into my life. I have a huge purpose. I love myself. I respect myself. Right? Because the language, what is the language that you're using? Because it's so easy for us as human beings to put ourselves down. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or woman, we all do it. Oh, you're not looking so good today. Ugh, man, what is that pimple on my face? Like, do you see the energy is like, oh, but like when I'm saying something positive, right? I'm not saying be Pollyanna, like positivity all the time. No, like be a human, right? The biggest thing I can tell you, I think with spirituality, everything's connected. Everything's connected, right? We all believe in something, but it's all connected. It all comes back to you in your heart. Like what is it that lights you up, right? And so, as far as I can tell you about spirituality, it's really working on yourself, reading the books. If you don't know what books to read, go on Google. We're so lucky to live in this age. We have access to so much information,
Yeah.
right? Maybe it's that one book that changes your life, then great. I've known people that have read one book 300 times, right? I'm not saying go and read 300 books a year. You don't have anything to prove to me, only to yourself. But what I can tell you is be better who you were today, be better today than you were yesterday. Right? If you're dealing with depression, whatever it is, seek a professional. There's people that specialize in these things, right? If you're dealing with trauma, right? Speak to somebody. That's why these people go to school, right? So yeah, to answer your question about the spirituality, I really think it goes back to us really facing ourselves. Like I had to face myself so many times, AJ, like I'd be like, oh my God, why? Like I'd sit with myself. Why do I feel upset right now? Why do I feel upset? Like, can I give you an example? Like,
Yeah, of course.
because this still comes up because it's always about working on yourself, right? Like I mentioned to you recently that I wanted to start getting on TikTok, right? I'm on a few other platforms, but I thought, why not, right? Well, there was a certain individual that I didn't realize was following me. And it was just someone in particular that just has not a very good energy. And I had a really hard time deciding whether I wanted to block them because I felt like I couldn't speak my voice around this person. And I blocked them. And in that moment, my heart started to really hurt. And I was like, am I having a panic attack? I was like, do I need to go to the hospital right now? But I just felt this very deep pain in my chest. I sat with it. I was like, I'm okay because I've had panic attacks. I've gone through a lot of things with my health. I know what a panic attack is. You feel like your whole body is shutting down, and I mean, it can get so bad you have to go to the hospital. Thankfully, I've never gotten that bad for me. Obviously, if you're having a panic attack, please go to the doctor, right? I am not a doctor, so please, this is not replace medical advice, so just trigger for that, okay? But anyways, I sat with it. I really had to sit with them. I was like, why am I feeling this pain? Why do I feel so upset? And I started to cry, right? And what I realized in that moment, I was like, I had this heaviness, anger towards this person for the pain that they caused me earlier in my life. And I knew in that moment that I made the right decision. I was like, I have nothing to prove to this person. What do I have to prove? 2 hours later, everything lifted. Next day, 100%. You know what happened? Because that took a lot of courage. Took a lot of courage on my part. But I felt like it was blocking me from wanting to say certain things, right? To that day on Monday, I don't know what it was, something internally, because that's part of you knowing yourself. Something told me you need to call up the studio right now. You're ready to go in the studio and record your song. You guys, I have a background in music. I studied music. It was so hard to get into that university. I studied music. And then I just put it on a back burner after I graduated. Well, that's nice. Put that on the back burner for 20 years. How is that serving your purpose? Right? I love to sing. I love to play clarinet. Everything has its purpose, right? And so it's interesting because not that long ago, I started taking voice lessons, and guess what was blocked? My throat. I kept trying to sing. Like, it's not that I couldn't sing, but I was trying to sing this particular song, and every single time I just cried. I cried and I cried. I was like, I don't know what it is. And you know what it was? It was this anger that I had towards this. And again, that served its purpose. It took me 1 year, you guys, 1 year to write the lyrics. I wrote the lyrics to my single, which will be coming out this year. There was just one day, it just flowed. It just all came out. It just rained, right? And it just came to me, right? And then I called up the studio because they're so busy. I mean, there's a lot of studios here in LA, but and then my higher self, right, your innermost self, right, kind of like when you get those butterflies in your stomach, told me you're ready to go in the studio. You need to get the song out because it's all about empowering women. I'm not about getting on American Idol. I'm just doing this honestly because I want to empower. If I get on American Idol, great, but no, seriously, the song that's coming out. It's all about honoring yourself. It's all about women empowerment. I'm excited to share it with you guys on happiness from within. You can, but anyways, what happened from that experience, AJ, was that because I made that cause, because to every cause there is an effect, my heart was now more open, right? I started singing again. I'm going this Saturday to work with a producer and engineer to finally, after so many years of wanting to do this, 20 years, please don't wait 20 years for your dream to come true, to record my single. It's fine. Everything served its purpose, right? But I'm telling you, I was trying to do everything. I was getting all these voice lessons. It didn't matter what I was doing on the outside. I had to work on the inside. And actually, that person did me a favor. So thank you so much. Thank you for the negativity. Thank you for the experience.
Was there a
I'm not saying it's perfect. I still probably hold a little bit. But the thing is, it's hard sometimes because, how do you say? I feel like someone listening is saying, well, that's beautiful, but like, what if I really am angry at somebody? I want you to know that you deserve to have those feelings. It may be years, it may take months, maybe before you really release that anger. But I think the biggest thing with anger, I want you to know it's what we do with it, right? I use the anger to now produce something of value, right?
yeah.
So that's why I'm
I
just like, I'm not allowing it to affect me anymore. What this person did to me is not, I'm sorry, it's forgivable, but there's a part of it that's not, I forgive it, but it doesn't mean it's okay what happened. That's the message that I want to give because I know that there's traumatic things that a lot of people go through, very traumatic things. And I want you to know I'm not saying that you have to say it's okay. No, it's not okay because it wasn't your fault. But I just wanted to say that because I feel like somebody listening to this right now is asking that question internally. I want you to know that it's okay to have your anger. Obviously be careful what you do with your anger, but use it as something of value. If you want to take a pillow and just scream into your pillow, do whatever you need to do to release. Maybe you like to dance. Maybe you like to sing. Maybe you just like to be the most productive mom, the most productive CEO. Be productive in your work. But you got to sit with your anger. You got to sit with your feelings. That's part of growth. No, it's
I
not easy. It's not rainbows and unicorns. Like you're gonna freaking like cry. You're gonna, like. But yeah, I just really wanted to share that.
absolutely, absolutely. And I as you were speaking about anger, something popped up in my mind. This was a discussion that I had with my wife, and she's really wise. She's amazing.
Oh, I'm
And
sure.
she said this. She said that anger itself is not bad, but the difference is whether anger controls you or you control anger. And I found that to be such a profound difference because it shifts your perspective. Am I out of control with anger? Or am I using that energy, as you said, to do something productive, to empower people, to channel that energy into some great purpose? I think that's the shift. Guys, by the way, before I forget, make sure to check out the links. She's offering a free consultation call if you're interested. But I wanted to end this podcast with this question. What are 3 moments in your life that completely changed the trajectory of your life and got you to this place that you're so grateful for?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. That's a really great question. I would say the first one was when I got into music school because I had a dream to study music, right? And I was always excelling in my clarinet playing, but my clarinet teacher, is like, "Why don't you just try?" It's like, "There's no way I'm going to get in, right?" And but the thing was, I did it. I auditioned, and I found out a week later that I was accepted, and it really changed my life because I've always, music's been a big part of my life. I would say the second was when I found out that when I found out I knew in 2020 when my spirit, my higher self, I knew that I healed myself from that condition. And now it was time to put like the actual food and stuff, to start cleaning out whatever was left. But yeah, I mean, when I had that awakening and I knew that that's where I created my podcast, Happiness from Within, my whole brand, right? That's why my name is Janet Prado, but I'm all about happiness, right? So when I found out my body healed, and I'd say probably the third, and I have to tell you, this was just as of recently, and I really mean this at such a deep level. It was as of recent, I created a program called Beautiful Soul Emerging during the pandemic. And I put 7 women through this program, and each of these women, their life completely changed. Like attracting partners, literally partners, dream houses, overcoming trauma, illnesses, right? And the whole point of this program, it isn't just about the trauma, but really about finding, if you think about a butterfly, right? A butterfly, it stays in its cocoon and it's like a reflection of life. It's struggling, struggling, struggling. And then it comes out to be a beautiful butterfly, hence beautiful soul emerging, right? But I came to realize, because I made some changes to the program earlier this year. I kid you not, I got into this really, because I consider myself the sparkly host, sparkly podcaster. It's all about sparkle. If you think about a diamond, every day you're polishing your beautiful diamond, however that looks, right? Through self-development, spirituality. As you polish that diamond, it's going to get brighter and brighter. And there's no way that's not going to show up on the outside, right? So I have to really tell you, as of recently, earlier this year, I really came to a point after so many years, my whole life. I might cry when I say this, but it's so profound, that I really love myself. I can tell you at the deepest core of my level, 110,000%, I love myself so much that when I was making the Beautiful Soul Emerging, I got into the cute little outfit and a bikini, and I was like just dancing around. I didn't even care, it wasn't about being the perfect body shape because I'm still, working on that, right? But I just I love myself so much.
That's
I was like, I don't care what anybody thinks. And so, yeah, I really love myself. That was my third biggest breakthrough.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for giving us time on this podcast. It's been a pleasure. And maybe sometime in the future we may have another episode.
Absolutely.
Again. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
If you want to recover from marital conflicts even faster, click the link below to access the free guide I mentioned earlier.